Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson,
Jazz. It's all about the jazz, huh?
Alan Seiler,
Sorry, it's all about the baseball.
Good one.
Veronica Dashel,
Hi.
and we're joined by a special guest this week, Nita, host of Sci-Fi Queens. Welcome, Nita.
Hey.
Thank you. Thank you. It's
Nita.
great to be here. How are you
Yeah.
guys doing?
We're
Cool.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
excited to have you.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to be talking about the DS9 documentary, What We Left Behind, tonight. But first, Nita, how did you get into Star Trek?
Okay, so I'm an original series girl.
Okay.
Welcome.
Well, you're
yes,
in good company too.
yes. I got into Star Trek because of my brother. He was 10 years older than I, so he controlled the TV, and he was a big sci-fi nerd. Star Trek, Star Wars, the whole gambit of, actually the mid to late 70s. So he puts on Star Trek. I remember being sitting in front of the TV on the floor, and Trouble with Triples comes on, and I see this beautiful Uhura, and she looks like family members that I have, and she's gorgeous, and you hear my brother in the background talk about how gorgeous she is, and then you have Spock, who won't love a Spock at
Right.
5 years old, and Kirk and all of these characters, and I love the fight scene that they had, when they were defending the actual Enterprise ship. I was completely taken over by Star Trek at that point, and been a fan ever since.
Nita,
Wow.
you mean the fight scene that's still going on, probably?
Yeah.
So, the original series was your first Star Trek. What is your favorite
Uh-huh.
Star Trek?
Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
That's why it had to be
okay.
on tonight.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you give the
Right.
choices. I said absolutely tonight, because Space Nine is my favorite. I mean, who doesn't love Deep Space Nine? Doesn't
Right.
understand Deep
Yeah.
Space Nine?
Yeah. Everybody
Or
here loves
Star
Deep Space Nine.
Trek. Or
Right.
Star Trek. Because I think Deep Space Nine incumbents all of what Star Trek and all of the Federation belief into this show.
Mm.
And it shows you all of those beliefs in play together alongside family life.
Mm.
And it gives you religion, which never really happened in Star Trek. It
Mhm.
gives you different cultures and alien races that you hear about, but you never really fully understood or had a real understanding of their culture.
Mm.
It had the opportunity to expand on all these characters. And who doesn't love Cisco? Hello, Cisco.
Yeah, and it's
kind of sort
funny.
of the network.
And it's funny. The reason you love it is the reason people hated it originally.
Oh yeah.
Yes. I'll be honest, when I was excited when they had announced Deep Space Nine originally, and then I said, but they're not going anywhere. It's not space travel. What's happening? I don't understand. But
Mm.
when you give it an opportunity to really kind of sink in, and really take in what they're trying to do, you do learn to appreciate that they're standing still.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely some benefits to that.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's true, Nita. We've talked about on our show several times that sometimes people understandably misunderstand what Star Trek is, because Star Trek by definition doesn't have to be on a spaceship. It's really the journey. And
Mhm.
that journey is a journey of discovery and a journey of cooperation and so forth. And you don't have to be in a ship to go somewhere for that. And that's what Deep Space Nine proves.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what character outside of Cisco in Deep Space Nine did not encompass that journey more?
Mm.
He went through so much to get to becoming emissary. I'm not a fan of the ending, but that's okay.
Yes, yes.
I have learned to accept that I can change it.
Right.
They did my Cisco wrong, but that's okay. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. And he was amazing.
Mhm.
You saw so many different diversities of humans, diversity in alien races, diversity in in religious belief and cultures and the way things are done. It really expanded your mind and really made you understand how big the universe in Star Trek is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they allow the characters to be people, which you don't have in
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yes.
so many of the characters on Deep Space Nine have families that are part of the show
Yeah.
and varying family units from the Cisco's to the O'Briens
Yeah,
to the
absolutely.
Ferengi to even, you know, people like Worf and Jadzia. Like there was a lot of family dynamics on the show, and so that's something that Veronica and I talk about a lot, and we talk about on the show. Is you'll have scenes in the runabout when they're heading someplace, and they're just talking about their lives. That's not
Yep.
a plot point. It doesn't play into the
Mhm.
grand arc of the season or anything like that. Whereas it seems like there's other Star Trek shows where it's difficult to let the characters talk about
Mhm.
something that's not part of the plot. You know, just
Exactly.
let them live as the characters. Let us experience them as people for a little bit.
And you can't really do that if you're on a spaceship because you're limited on your resources and your
Mm,
experiences.
yeah.
Because if you really think about it, they spend more time on that spaceship than they do in actual planets.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So if there's that experience and interaction with other cultures and other species is limited.
Mm.
While in Deep Space Nine, you can really have a Cardassian tailor slash possible spy.
Right.
You can have a Ferengi barkeep. You know, you
Yeah.
can have, a Bajoran shrine.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a Klingon restaurant. You can have all these wonderful things, and it's okay because you're in a station. They get to experience, and people are coming and going. It's and it kind of also showed you the little bit of the darker side of Starfleet
Mm.
because they were forefront of most battles that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the people that were in stationed in Deep Space Nine had already experienced war with the Borg
Right.
and the Cardassians and so many other things that they were going through that PTSD and that experience.
Mm.
And when the battle came with the Dominion, you saw that
Mm.
happening. And I think it gave the world a different perspective and representation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys, what you saw said about, and by the way, folks who are listening, we're going to spoil the heck out of DS9, obviously. But Charles, you said something very interesting on Nita's point about family, because I remember the Maquis episode is when Cisco and Gul Dukat were going to confront the Maquis, and Gul Dukat was basically saying he was going to take one of his kids to Cardassian Disney World, and he can't because he's on this mission. And he says, basically, all my son's going to remember is that his dad wasn't there as promised, basically because you Federation guys are screwing around with our life. I mean, this is Gul Dukat's strange point of
Exactly.
view. But Cisco says, I didn't know you had a kid. And Dukat didn't treat Cisco like Cisco's being wrong, but he's like, oh, I'm just this evil Cardassian. I guess you don't think we have kids. Which is, and then later on, he has another kid that he's thinking about killing. So it's a very interesting show.
Yes.
Right.
But family.
Yeah.
But
Well-
that is family, though, because you'll find family that will support you and be with you and be a Cisco kind of dad. And then you have families where they have the golden cot of dads. And they're represented even there. There is no lack of representation in this show.
Yeah, I remember Dad one night saying, hey, Mom, Juanita, I don't know if we should kill Keith or not, but
Can you imagine?
yeah.
And remember, Goldka had like 7 sons, he said.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he had the one daughter who he was going to kill because she was the daughter of the Bajoran mistress.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
She had the nerve to be born.
Exactly.
Plus that baby that was miraculously born in the cult.
Yeah, that was a creepy episode. That episode creeped me out. That was a creepy episode.
I've read about that.
Yeah, well, tonight we're talking specifically about the documentary, What We Left Behind. Now, did everyone see the documentary when it came out?
I did. I unfortunately had to leave Chuck behind so he could go to his daughter's chorus concert.
Yeah. Yeah, we bought tickets in advance, and then the chorus concert ended up being the same night. So I sent Veronica off to watch Deep Space Nine, and I went to watch a bunch of 7-year-olds sing or 7th graders sing.
So you're
I did-
clearly a dad of the Cisco model.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Cisco would not have skipped the chorus concert, so I can't either.
I didn't see it when it originally came out, but I saw it later on.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see it when it originally came out either, and I've actually never seen the whole thing before.
Oh, but have you now?
I sure have.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
Yes, I saw the whole thing.
yeah, it was
Excellent.
good.
Mhm.
I really loved the way they did the opening
Mm.
with those guys singing
Yes.
and pulling in songs. Nah, I'm not using the right words.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've heard criticisms of the show of the documentary before that it's a bit self-indulgent. That do you need to spend time letting Max Grodenchik sing a song at the beginning of the documentary? But I think who cares?
Yeah.
But isn't that the whole
if he wants to sing
point?
during the whole thing, I'm good.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, isn't that the whole point of a documentary is to self-indulge in that topic and really delve into it and really showcase it, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And to give you that information. So if that's what they think, they're kind of on point.
Yeah. Well, I think there are I mean, if you're looking for a documentary that's like a factual recounting, of the making of the show, maybe this is
That
for
will be
you.
a snoozer.
Could be, but I would watch it.
Yeah, no,
But-
I would watch it too because I'm a Trekkie, but
Yeah,
it would be
this
a
is more
snoozer.
a celebration of the show.
Yes.
And
What
I mean,
could
really,
happen?
after those actors and the creators of the show, so for so long it's been the dark horse of Star Trek. Where
Right.
it's just little things like it'll get left off of promotions. They'll have a graphic of the captains and there's no Cisco, and things like the fan reaction in the 90s, which I didn't know about at the time because I was a kid and I just watched it. I just liked it. But I think they're entitled to a victory lap because I think of all
Absolutely.
the shows, their show has stood the test of time more than a lot of the other Star Trek series have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they were up against other shows that really was hard to compete with, and they
Mhm.
stood there. They did better than Star Trek Enterprise did.
I agree with you.
Yes.
Oh no.
You're
All right,
welcome
Nita,
on
you
the show,
started
Nita.
something.
But they did. I'm not a Star Trek Enterprise hater, but there was a lot of times where you had to be like, okay, just bear with the episode. Maybe the next one will be better. Like, and the storylines were, and I understood why, because they were pre Kirk and they didn't have the Prime Directive, and they were kind of like in chaos.
Sure.
But it was a little too noticeable for me, the
Well-
chaotic feeling, and these Space Knights really stuck there, and they really grew, and they really were captivating. And I think that they had the first black captain,
Mhm.
and they didn't start him out as a captain, which kind of initially bothered me when I first, because I said, wait a minute, he was supposed to be a captain. Why is he a commander?
Right.
And I immediately said, because that's a black man. They didn't want to make him a captain. Like, I got all huffy about it. But I liked the fact of how they did it. They progressed him and they grew him and they promoted him, and you saw his growth, and you really didn't need to be a captain if you were on a space station in command, because he was a captain. His way of command didn't change from commander to captain. He was who he was.
Right.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
Iris even Bear was saying something on the episode because I was watching a little bit of it earlier about how some people were complaining when he was promoted to captain because commanders are at space stations and captains are on ships.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming that's kind of why they started with that, but they felt like he should progress. So
What?
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
they gave him the Defiant, so
Mhm.
it even
Yep.
keeled.
True.
right there.
Yeah.
And the
Captain.
Defiant was pivotal in winning a lot of battles.
Mhm.
So
That's true. Yeah, I think from a television perspective, like the original plan was that the commander of the station would be more of a Riker, like a younger commander. But once they cast Avery Brooks, I mean, you don't buy him as a Riker. You buy him as the captain, right? But
Hey,
also,
he was Hawk. Don't
Right.
mess
Yeah.
with Hawk.
That's right.
Okay.
but also, I think
That's
there
what I
was
gotta say.
there was some concern among the executives that you don't want to have two captains. It's confusing to have two captains. But I think that's stupid. Like no one's going to
Exactly.
confuse
No one is.
Jean-Luc Picard with Benjamin Sisko.
No.
Oh no. And can I just say that I kind of like that interaction that he had with Picard in that first scene. Because we give a lot of credit, and credit is due, when in Star Trek Picard, when the captain confronts Riker and Picard and calls them space cowboys and da-da. And he told him what was, and he was true to the fact. He confronted them. He didn't say anything that wasn't right about them. Okay, that he was rude, maybe, yeah, but he had his personal reasons for getting to saying what he said. But it was Cisco who first did that.
Right.
It was Cisco who first made Picard realize that his locutus self was still hurting people.
Yeah.
And he walked away from that conversation by turning around, but I think it was there. I think he imprinted.
I think the Irish Stephen Bear thing was very interesting because I was, as they say, I was good and grown when DS9 came out, and I remember the controversies, the whole thing about it was a place that went nowhere, and people hated that. And I remember on the message boards at the time the whole thing about Avery Brooks. And as you said, Charles, what Stephen Bear said was they wanted a younger person because they wanted a commander. They wanted somebody to grow. And then he came in, and I like the line he said was, "Oh, he was a captain." And they realized they had a captain, but then of course they had to take the time to get there. And then there was the whole thing. I thought the thing about his hair or lack thereof was very interesting. And I absolutely remember at the time feeling that way and still feeling that way as a Black person. And trust me, a lot of my Black friends, the first thing was, why does the first Black person feature have to be a commander, not a captain? And it was a big deal. It was a big deal.
It was a huge deal.
Yeah. And then the whole thing with the hair. And I also found it very interesting, even though I know a lot of the network absolutely was concerned that he looked too much like Hawk. I thought it was very interesting that Rick Berman also straight up said there was a lot of conversations at the network about Black men and their hair. And so I think that there was a little concern that he was bald with a goatee. He'd look a little too menacing. And we've talked about this a billion times, but once, and even in a documentary, you see it. As soon as that man goes bald with a goatee, Avery Brooks walk. It's just different. It's just different.
A whole different vibe.
Yeah. And I love in the documentary, although I wish what's her name, Penny Johnson wasn't in it enough for me. I like when she said, "Ooh, I just wanted to touch his head."
It's so true. I love her, Penny Johnson. She's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And she's amazing. I thought the love interest was perfectly done. Sometimes in TV, love interest, especially in Star Trek, can be creepy.
Yep.
Okay, Neelix and
nope, let's not go there.
We're not even gonna touch that. That has all kinds of wrong on there. And there's just a few that always made me kind of wonder, like, why? That's creepy. But this was perfectly done. I think they were perfectly suited as characters for each other. They were both captains. They were both people that were well established, knew who they were. And they weren't growing together emotionally, but they were growing together in other areas of their life. And I think they also respected that they were captains and they of their, in their own world. And they had to respect that. And I thought that was fantastic. I love Penny Johnson, but going back to the hair, you are absolutely correct, Keith. When he came in that episode shaved with that goatee, that blew my mind.
Yeah,
I said, "Oh my God, he looks amazing." But he had this walk that you can feel his authority. And, it's interesting that I feel, in a sense, by not allowing him, Avery Brooks, to bring the character of Cisco bald with a goatee, whether he looked like Hawk or not, was taking away a little bit of that character's power. And kind of saying, we're going to rein in that power. And I don't know. I have some kind of feelings about that. And it feels, it's uncomfortable as a Trekkie to feel that they're kind of reining in that power on someone, because it's opposite to what Star Trek is about.
Yeah, it was funny because it's funny how people see things and voice things. They showed one African American gentleman who was a writer and exec producer, and he was the one he was out in the grass, and he said, "Oh, when I heard about Avery Brooks, I'm thinking they got Hawk, and he's going to be driving some kind of. We was saying some weird stuff about the spaceship. And he's going to have a silver-plated phaser, and then he goes, and then we get this boring dad." And I thought that was interesting. But what really struck me was Cole Meany, who seems like he pulls no punches. Cole Meany sat there and said, "Well, the network, they were trying to basically make him an Uncle Tom kind of sort of." Wow.
He was absolutely right.
You said
he was absolutely right. But you see, he can say it. He's at a seating of privilege where he could say it, and I was glad that someone wasn't afraid to say it, and say, yeah, that's exactly what they were doing, Right. But the thing is that I think that making him a dad was actually a good thing because it brings home back that image of specifically the Black father. Because television-wise, there was this image of Black fathers being absentees and leaving their families, and oh, you don't know who your dad is because he's not around, and it was real. This was the image that was portrayed on television. What people don't, the younger generation don't understand. This is the image that was portrayed, and this was what was being conveyed, and this is what people thought of themselves. This is who we are as Black people, men who leave their sons, and that wasn't what's happening in reality. And here he brings in this new image of, no, I stay with my son. I'm going to raise him. I'm going to take care of him. We're going to have a good relationship with one another. And there's a lot of people, even young men who are not African American, who felt this is the dad I always wanted and looked up to Avery because he was able to make that relationship not about color, but about fatherhood. And that was really important. I mean, I've spoken to Trekkies, male Trekkies, say he was the only father figure I had.
Wow.
And they're not African American. So yeah, it is important to bring those images in a diverse way. And that's why one of the many things that makes Deep Space Nine so amazing. And it just blows my mind. Deep Space Nine always.
Yeah.
Star Trek, like so much science fiction fantasy, has the whole thing with when it's a male, there's a thing with the father. They have a problem with the father, or the father's dead or something like that. And so Picard had problems with his father. Spock had problems with his father.
Riker.
The less said about Worf and Alexander, the better. The less, poor kid.
Talk about a man who not only was raised by humans and he's Klingon, but didn't even know he was a dad. Now he has a full-grown kind of 5-year-old kid coming, and he doesn't know what to do with him. And he doesn't know how to read, and there's no one there to help him, which I always thought was weird. There's nobody on that starship that can sit Worf down and say, okay, we're going to help you through this as men.
Right. Yeah, I want to get on that point, but before that, we've got some comments from Tiger Blades 2002 in the comments section that we've been. The conversation's just going, so I was trying not to interrupt.
Right.
So Wayne said hello to everyone, and then he said,
"Hey,
I thought the 4 actors that sang at the beginning and the end of the documentary were fantastic. A rather enjoyable point of view from the cast." And then said, now Wayne is a military veteran, and said, if you command a ship or station in the naval forces, they were often called captain or skipper.
There you go.
Regardless of rank. And then commented, through Avery Brooks, I saw my relationship with my son on TV, and I thank him for that.
Aw.
You see how beautiful that is?
I just want to say, Keith, you're talking about a trope about fatherhood in Trek. That was a very prevalent trope in television.
Yeah.
You know, and every time you are watching a new series and a father and a son are introduced, they're always estranged every damn time.
Yes.
To the point where I just got sick of it.
Now,
there's this idea that men can't be dads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also the idea that that's the baseline for how to create a dramatic show.
Yes.
That's a way to give character depth. Like they can't ever think of a different angle than that.
Yeah.
And Nita, you make a good point. That's an avenue I wish they would have gone down, would be Cisco advising Worf about raising his son, because it's notorious among Trekkies that Worf was a terrible father.
Yes.
Sisko was a fantastic father. That would have been some really great scenes between those two actors.
Yeah, that's true. I'd never thought about that before.
Yeah, I'd never had either.
I mean, think about it. They went as far in Star Trek to address mental health and going to counseling a very normal, very just kind of part of the process thing. And you're telling me that you can't get someone who's actually a guy, who's actually a dad and single dad, to say, let me step in here and help him with that. I always found that a little odd, because they did have Deanna help him, but I don't think she really understood Klingons.
True.
And the idea of raising a Klingon child who's part human in a human environment was a bit out of her league. But I think if anyone understood Klingon, it was definitely Sisko.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I liked in the documentary when they were talking about Avery Brooks, and I think we've all seen him in person at least once at cons, and everybody knows that Avery Brooks is absolutely a different kind of person. They kept saying when Avery Brooks, he acted and he said it was like jazz, and I love Casey Biggs, who looks almost nothing like Damar. It was so weird to look at Casey Biggs.
But it sounds exactly like Damar.
Yes. And when Casey Biggs said he was having trouble getting this one line, and he just couldn't get it right, he says Avery Brooks comes over and goes, "Just glide, Diggs. Just glide." Okay, that sounds like it. And then he also would tell them, and then Jeffrey Combs said he would go, "Just slalom, man. It's just like a slalom." I can see Avery Brooks directing like that.
Yeah. And then when the I think it was the 80 from when he was directing for that first time, and she was like, "I don't know what you want," and he's just like, "This, and this. See?" And she's like, "Okay, great."
That was great. And I don't know if you remember that, but the AD was talking about how Avery Brooks came to her and basically said, "I want you to make sure I have everything I need."
Yeah.
She goes, "I don't know what you need because you never talk." She says, "I ask you something," and he's like, "You don't want to talk to me." And then he goes, "I guess you don't get my sense of humor." And she actually came back and said, "Sir, I didn't know you had one." Like, whoa. And he loved her after that, evidently.
He is so commanding.
Yeah.
That his presence is so commanding that it can be intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's something that works really well for him in character, but can be very, very scary for a cast of actors that haven't been around as much as he has. There were very few actors on there that were as seasoned as he was.
Right.
Quark was a very seasoned actor. There was a lot of them, a couple of them that were, but didn't interact with him as much as those that were not as seasoned actors, like Jadzia.
Yeah, I was gonna say Terry Farrell.
Yeah.
I remember Terry talking about how when she was working with him and the first time he called her old man, she had to pull him aside and be like, when you say it like that, I feel like I want to shrink or something like that. And and he changed it to like more of a teasing thing that they ended up using.
Right. And then he smiles.
Yeah.
I love that moment when he calls her that for the first time and he smiles, because I felt like that's what he was doing. I felt like he was teasing her and he was like, old man, like, "Hey, I remember who you used to be," kind of thing. Which I think worked really well to establish that relationship. But I think that had he said it, "old man," and walked away with his very theatrical way, I think it would have terrified people.
Yeah.
We're right at about the halfway point. So let's take a quick break for a couple of commercials, and then we'll come right back and we'll get back into what we left behind. So stay right there.
Attention, people of Earth.
Turned on the TV late last night,
'cause I felt nerdy.
Saved the galaxy from a fright,
'cause I felt nerdy. On my TV late last night, 'cause I felt nerdy. Defied gravity and took flight, 'cause I felt nerdy. Exterminate, okay, destroy.
having some problems up here. Good luck. Stay safe. See you soon.
And we're back. Now, Keith, you said that you had not seen What We Left Behind previously. Is that right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
when did you watch it for the first time?
Today.
So what did you think? Like what was your takeaway?
I loved it, and I think what it really did for me is it reminded me so much of what Lightning in a Bottle, and I think I said on Facebook page that Lightning in a Bottle the show was, and we've talked about this, Nita, so many times in our show. Every story that Rick Berman, and Brian Braga, who would have, I know, right? Rick Berman and Brian Braga, who would have been micromanaging the show, ultimately was spending their time with Voyager.
Yeah.
And you can see the change in Deep Space Nine as Pillar and Wolf and Ira Stephen Burr there got to do more with the show.
Right.
And it reminded me of so many things that they got to try that they might not have gotten to try, like the first relatively innocent lesbian kiss and relationship. As you were talking about family, I guarantee you Cisco would not have had that kind of relationship with his kid had Berman and Braga been running that show, despite Avery Brooks. And so I thought it was wonderful. And what struck me is even now, after decades, is hearing people like Nana Visitor saying the first time she read her character, she said, and I saw another interview with her with the guys from Enterprise, where she goes, "Are you sure this is right?" She would literally said, "Are you sure this wasn't a man's role? And this is for me?" And she said for the entire 7 years, she would go in there going, "This can't possibly be this character, this strong character." And so I thought it was wonderful to hear these people talk about what the show did for them. Andrew Robinson said in the documentary toward the end, he said that show helped to wipe away the bitterness and the anger that he as an actor would sometimes have against Hollywood. And I just thought that was wonderful. So I thought it was a great retrospective to remember how they came together to create, in my opinion, probably the best show. But also, I was thinking about this. There's been so many Star Trek movies and franchises, but by nature, they can't all be groundbreaking. Like, I don't think TNG is a groundbreaking series. It's a good series, but it's not groundbreaking. The OS was groundbreaking because it was the first. Voyager is not a groundbreaking show. It's just a different locale. DS9 is kind of groundbreaking for Star Trek with the stuff they did. And I came away just with renewed love for the show and just gratitude that they managed to pull off something that in another life they would not have been able to pull off. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, Deep Space Nine, for one thing that it did for me that I will never, ever, ever be grateful enough for was, to be honest, that religious representation. It was because I grew up I was raised in the church, and not in church. I don't go now, but I'm not religious now, but I didn't have a bad experience per se. So, there were little things here and there, but nothing where I feel like I need to decompose and decompress all of my religious experience. And I don't have a bad negative kind of feeling and taste in my mouth of my past. So it was the first time that I saw people who worshipped and went to church and had these convictions that I could say I understand where they're coming from, or I kind of learned something similar to that, and I understood the Bajoran people and a level that if you don't have that experience, you may not quite get why they were so entangled with their religion. And I got it, and I understood it, and I felt for the first time that I was being represented in that area of my life, and I saw people of different colors and brown people, and that was a huge representation for me. And seeing women like Kira and Dax and even, Esri Dax, who were strong women, and just amazing women, and just the different characters that they kept bringing in, and just was amazing. Even Cassidy Yates, she was a strong woman, and she was in Federation, but she was strong, and she was living a successful non-Federation life, which is something that we also saw, is how did people live if they weren't part of the Federation, if they didn't live and work for the Federation. It was the level of representation that you can find in one show. No show has ever done that before, and I don't think other than Discovery has ever been able to do it again.
Right.
And I think that when it comes to Deep Space Nine and Discovery, they've got representation covered.
Right.
Yeah.
Just covered.
So a large part of the documentary was the writers getting together for a single day and writing a potential what would happen if there was a season 8. Now.
Oh, I wanted that so bad.
I already disagree with all their choices.
Yes. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I remember that came out the year that we had Aaron Eisenberg at Trekland, our local convention that we used to have here. So before the show, because no one else from Trekland came to one of the only viewings in the Atlanta area, I went up and just without anyone saying anything, I just went up in the front and was like, "Hey guys, there's this really awesome Star Trek convention coming up. Aaron Eisenberg, who's going to be in this documentary, he's going to be there, so come on out." And then we got to meet him, and then later that year he passed. Killed him on the documentary in the season 8, and they did not have Odo in the season 8. He was off elsewhere, so the person they killed and the person they didn't put in it passed away that year.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're murderers, is what you're saying.
That's what I'm hearing, Alan. I'm hearing that. I'm hearing her
I hear clear accusations.
Yes. It's all circumstantial, though. We do realize that.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like I'm watching
I
Columbo.
agree with some of the things in their possible season 8. I did not agree that Kira will be okay being the leader of the Bajoran religion as well as being in charge of Deep Space Nine. I think that she was strongly opposed to a leader of Bajor and a religious leader being combined.
Yeah.
She was strongly opposed to that. So I don't think she would take on that role. I think she would drop one of them, and I don't think she's taking on the leader of the Bajoran spiritual beliefs. I think she would have stayed on with Deep Space Nine.
I agree.
I think that depends, because I think that she would see herself as a reformationist, and she would be able to see herself as, I can come in and I can help make this situation better. But I think I agree with you, even having said that she is a military-minded person,
Yeah.
and she always struggled with her own faith. So I think that she would definitely stay. But here's the thing. That was my favorite aspect of the documentary, was getting an insight. Even if you agree with what their choices are or not, I loved seeing them sit around and hang on, I'm coming. Oh, you got it. Okay.
We've got a
Hello,
guest
I'm so
beaming in.
sorry I'm late.
Hey.
Right.
I ended up having to go to work.
No.
But I figured, it's been a really slow night. I really wanted to make an appearance, so don't mind me. I'll jump in whenever you need me.
Yeah, beaming in progress is Ash. Welcome, Ash Pistachio. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Ash.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Ash.
Hey.
Live long and prosper.
Yeah, same to you. Nanu.
Nanu.
Wow, that's a good one. And we were just talking about the documentary, What We Leave Behind, and the
season
thing
8.
the season 8 that they would have done if they had been able to do it. And they were discussing the whole, would Kira have become both a religious leader and still a military and commander of the station at the same time?
What an interesting question. And I don't know, but I'm sure her outfits would have looked stellar.
Yes. Yes.
It's giving
She wouldn't have had that same outfit the entire time.
Yeah. And I mean, it looked cool and everything. I thought it was funny that when she got pregnant, her hair was brown.
Yeah, that is true.
I don't know
I
why.
wonder what happened there.
She was pregnant in real life, and women
Yeah,
who are
yeah. I
pregnant
knew she was
don't
pregnant in real
dye
life, but
their
her
hair
hair.
normally.
She
was
Well, now
pregnant
I
in real
know.
life to Bashir's son.
Bashir, yeah.
Because they were married in real life.
That's
and
right.
Pregnant women don't normally dye their hair. There's something with the toxins in the pregnancy. I don't really know the
That is
details,
so
but I know that
interesting.
they stopped dyeing their hair during pregnancy.
The things you learn on Earth Station Trek.
Hey,
Yeah.
That's right.
learned something new today.
Yeah, for real.
Keith was
Wow.
just about to say that.
I thought
Now,
that
one
child was
thing,
beautiful.
one thing that was incredibly obvious that stood out about that season 8 is they had theorized that Cisco was coming back 20 years later. And I wrote in my notes, you know damn well Avery Brooks would have fought that tooth and nail that he abandoned his wife and both of his sons for 20, and it wasn't gonna, because he barely did the ending that they wrote for him, which was that famous "I may be back on whatever, I may be back yesterday." Because I think you guys know that one of the things they truly considered when they were first doing the series, that he was going to die at the end of Deep Space Nine.
Right.
He was going to go out a hero, and Avery's like, not in this life, you know. So when they said he came back for 20 years, although his appearance, the way they wanted that, it's also a little Deus Ex Machina, the way he was going to come back. That sounded cool, but 20 years, nah.
No, I agree with you. 20 years was not going to happen. He was going to fight with the prophets, and he was going to win that argument with the prophets, because he's always, if you listen to every conversation he's had with the prophets, he's always got his point across. He's always gotten what he's aimed for. He's always gotten his way, so to speak, with the prophets. He would have never, ever been gone 20 years of his son's life and his child to be's life. That was not going to happen. And having Cassidy Yates sit around and wait for him, that was seriously not going to happen. I'm sorry. No, do we not know the character Cassidy Yates? That wasn't going to happen.
And in universe, he doesn't have to wait 20 years in our time. That's the thing that makes no sense. What did y'all here? I thought something really interesting, and I wanted to know, because Alan and we've all talked about this too. Nowadays, this opinion might be different, but they also were going to make Section 31 the big bad.
I also don't like that.
No, I agree. No, that, every military operation needs a secret force to do things in secret.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah, we were just talking about that a couple weeks ago.
To save people's lives, to do things that are questionably moral. But yet necessary, that's why we have the CIA. Hi, CIA, we love you. It's the truth. I mean, really, it's the questionably moral group, right? And to make them bad, it doesn't fall in line. Then they're not Federation.
Yeah. See, that's
They're
my
not
problem
key.
with Section 31 for sure. Is like, isn't the whole premise of Star Trek that like we don't have to do messed up things that need to be kept secrets anymore? Obviously, in Deep Space Nine, we're at war. That's one thing. But in every other circumstance, like, we wouldn't want to put Section 31 on display if we were the Federation. I just feel like finding the story in that instead of how we made peace is kind of like, all right, I guess it'll make an interesting story. But it doesn't feel like it's in the spirit of Trek.
It may not be the spirit of Trek, but I think it's and I understand what you're saying. But I think that realistically, if you look at worldwide, any country's military, there's always a secret MI5. You've got CIA. You've got all these covert operations that do things that need to be done, but need to be done covertly. So I think that's if they take Section 31 and make it that.
Yeah.
Make it this covert little operation that do the things that need to be done, then that's great. But if you're going to portray them as the bad guy, that doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. If it's like spies, cool.
I'm good with spies. I'm okay with spies. CIA, hello.
Yeah. Well, the things that we already have Starfleet intelligence or Federation intelligence, that you already have a covert branch of Starfleet that does intelligence work. So I don't think that I think they got by with Section 31 on the show because you were never 100% if it was just Sloan or if there really was
Yeah.
an operation, because even, no one was real sure what Section 31 even was. Just this one guy shows up.
Because it
And
wasn't it just like this 1 or 2 episodes that they mention
Right.
it,
Yeah.
and it has blown up since.
Yeah. Now, I do
Here's-
want to grab a couple of comments real quick before we go too far. From our friend Wayne in the comments. Now, Wayne had said just a little bit ago a question. It had been a couple of years since I had seen the documentary. Did they re-edit it? Because I remember it differently.
I don't remember it differently.
No, I think it was. I think it's exactly the same now as it was when we saw it originally.
But where did Wayne watch it?
That I don't know.
That could be a factor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And then he said, "I agree with Alan. Even though I would love
that's the most important comment right now.
Even though I would love to see Cisco come back, I was not overly fond of how they proposed to reintroduce him." And then he said, "Nita has a point. However, in just about every incarnation of Trek, there was some kind of covert action during the series run." Yeah, and that's true. But I mean, like when Kirk and Spock were doing a covert action, they weren't violating the principles of Starfleet. They were, violating the neutral zone, but they weren't, killing children or something. Like Section 31 will let a planet die, whereas Kirk and Spock would not have. And I think that's the difference to me.
Yeah, I think that the idea that these covert entities do things, like I said, that are morally questionable or allow morally questionable things to happen is what if they're going with that concept with Section 31, then I can understand it. Even though we have an intelligence department in the Federation, that intelligence department does not operate really truly in secret because everyone knows about them and everyone knows what they do, and they go and they announce themselves. I think that with Section 31, it's really, really kind of like covert spy kind of level where they're going to infiltrate the enemy, and disguise themselves and, really 1960s kind of CIA level MI6 type of stuff, which I can understand, right? Because that's actually the making of really good television right there, and some really
having to
good
get creative with
you can get creative with that because you're not subject to the Prime Directive and all those things to a full extent the way Starship is, but if you're going to make them the bad guys, like really truly outright, these are bad people, these are just, I'm not sure that I'm okay with that.
What I find very interesting is you guys just expressed 3 different opinions. Nita, you're saying that Section 31 should exist, but you don't want them to be quote unquote bad.
No,
Ash pretty much said Section 31 shouldn't exist in the Star Trek world as she sees it, and Charles is kind of like they overused them. It was better when it was Sloan and like those two burly dudes that we saw one time. And so we've got different opinions on Section 31.
Yeah.
But I do think if they had rewritten that right now, of course, as you guys said earlier, with Aaron Eisenberg dying and Renee Auberjonois dying, they would have to rewrite it. But I do think if they rewrote season 8 in 2024, they probably wouldn't use Section 31 as the big bad because it's almost overdone now.
Yeah, I hope not. And if they did, right? I think the one way that Section 31, as Nita was saying, as long as they're not doing anything morally gray, cool. If they are, then it can exist if the plot is that the Federation is trying to excise them like a wart, because the CIA isn't supposed to do the things that it does, especially not on American soil. But somehow they do, and then we hear about it freaking 30 years later.
Exactly.
I don't want the Federation to be corrupt. I want the Federation to be actively going, stop doing that. I think that would be really kind of interesting. I don't know.
But at the same time, there's so many examples throughout Star Trek of the Federation being the bad guys.
That is
whether
true too.
It be organizationally or a rogue captain or a bad admiral or something.
Or turning a blind eye to something.
At least the Section 31 thing, depending on how it played out, when they say it the big bad, that can mean lots of different things.
Exactly.
Yeah. It really can.
But at least it's a different spin on the Federation is the one that's the evil. They're not living up to their ideals, And which that is a tiresome trope too.
What's exciting about Section 31 is Section 31 is the Khan of Deep Space Nine. And let me explain. Khan was one episode in Star Trek, the original series. It became such a hit that it became an entire movie.
Yeah.
It became a movie twice. In 2 different timelines.
And potentially more, depending on what you count as being a con.
Exactly. About Khan, Wrath of Khan, the man.
No, I know. But they also did want to be cons several times.
Yes.
Trying to recapture that.
Exactly. I mean, we've got 2 official movies with Khan and him and all of his people. This is huge. They made such an impact. And Section 31 has made such an impact in Star Trek Deep Space Nine that the 2 episodes they have been has blown into, and it has now inserted itself in Star Trek Discovery, and now probably an offshoot, either TV show or movie. And that's huge.
Yeah.
That is a storyline you want to capture and you want to get as a writer.
I feel that. I think I love the Star Trek fandom so much because it's been around forever. And whenever the Star Trek fandom does something, later on, it becomes real. Like, we're a powerful fandom.
That's true.
We've mastered manifestation, but not through magic, through sheer will and good taste.
So
now, we only have about 7 minutes of the show left. So I just wanted to see if anyone had any other thoughts about the documentary before we wrap it up.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask that of Ash, since Ash, you came in a little later. Did you was there? And that's a good question, Charles. Is there anything that stood out for you in the documentary, Ash?
Not enough Jadzia Dax.
As always.
I'm a salty person about the Jadzia Dax story.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, me too.
Unfortunately, maybe it's the fact that I have a female. I'm not really sure what's going on with me gender-wise, but mostly female, right? Female experience. I feel like if I was dealt the hand that she was, where my producer is kind of a creep and we're not getting along and stuff, I'd be so crushed because of how much I love Star Trek. I can't imagine going through that. And I mean, I don't know. The point I'm trying to make is, what a shame. I want to watch 9, 10, 11 seasons of just Jadzia Dax doing stuff. Like, put her in the Section 31 thing. I don't know how. Just figure out how to do it, because then I'll watch the shit out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I did.
I love Star Trek, so that's all I have to say.
I did find it very interesting to follow up what you said when Terry Farrell said that this executive producer, when she was basically trying to negotiate a better salary, told her, you better sign the contract, because otherwise, you're going to end up at Kmart. And
like that's so ugly.
That is so ugly.
Yeah, it is very ugly.
Yeah, and when she started crying, when she was in the room with the other people, she was crying, said, I didn't want her to die, but I had to do this. And I also thought it was sometimes people don't think, I thought it was also interesting in the same room where she had just said that Renee Auberjonois says, well, she unfortunately left and whatever, but then when they brought Esri in, there was like a bang. And he basically said it breathed new life into the show.
I like Esri Dax, but she did not bring new life to the show.
Yeah.
It really had no impact had they brought her in or not. She's a great actress. I've seen her in other things. She's wonderful. But that character did nothing for the show differently. It didn't bring new life. It really didn't.
It really
for me, Charles, what I came away with, we talked about the thing with Avery Brooks, but the other thing that I thought was amazing was Mark Alamo saying that he actually wanted a little more validation for his role, because he kind of didn't, they never told him that you're doing a great job. And I heard Stephen Burr said, well, we kept bringing you back. We expanded your role. That was good enough. And I wonder if that contributed to that incredible role. He seemed like he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, he did. But I mean, Iris Stephen Bear made a good point. Like that's how you know that the writers like you. They keep writing you.
Yeah.
But I found it interesting that, yes, Charles, you're right. Bringing you back is saying we like you. This is validation. But I like the fact that he stuck his gun and would not say it, not even in the documentary. Like he was like not gonna say it because you got what you wanted. You just want praise because you want praise, and this ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, because he did it, and when they were doing the interview in LA during Comic-Con, and he did it in the individual interview later. And Irish Even Bear was like, wait, we already had this conversation.
And I wanted to say too that I'm just really glad that Nana Visitor put a stop to Kira and Ducat.
Yes.
Oh God, yes.
Indeed.
Or we be doing episodes about that now.
Yeah.
That's a huge problem.
Right.
Ducat perfectly captures the guy you want to punch. Just like the German word is Backpfeifengesicht. One word means very
That's a big
punchable
word.
I learned it when I was 12, and sometimes it just rolls around in my head. So there you go. Backpfeifengesicht.
I like that word though. I think I'm gonna use it. The Seifengeficht.
Please.
We're almost to the end here. Thank you guys very much for joining us today. Now, Nita, I know you're the host of Sci-Fi Queens. Where can people find you, and where can they find Sci-Fi Queens? And also tell people what that is.
Sci-Fi Queens is a podcast. You can find us on YouTube. Just youtube.com/@Sci-Fi Queens, and we talk about all things science fiction, but related to the female characters of science fiction, in all genres, whether that's gaming, comic books, movies, TV shows, everything science fiction. We've interviewed authors and painters and all these wonderful things.
I love that.
We also we have a segment that showcases a real female scientist doing something in today's world, and what she's doing, as well as sci-fi book recommendations that we do for our audience. So we're on every other Friday at 8 p.m.
Awesome.
And I'm going to follow the shit out of you.
You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of the Snapchat, just Sci-Fi Queens.
Awesome. And Ash, thank you very much for joining us as well. But where can people find more of you?
Thank you. I'm sorry I was late. I'm on TikTok as @Clownunist. You'll know me because my bio says ad astra per aspera. And I think that's pretty, and also on Instagram, I'm Clownunism.
Okay.
Wait, no. Scratch that. Reverse it. It's on TikTok, I'm Clownunism. On Instagram, I'm Clownunist. And I'm Ash Pistachio on Facebook if you like to read poetry.
Oh, nice.
And that's it.
All right, Keith, where can people find more of you?
You can find me on, what is it now, X and Instagram and Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And how about you, Alan?
Well, go to www.cosmiccreative.com. KOZMIC creative.com. That's it.
How about us, Veronica?
Feltnerdy.com. That's actually a website now.
Yep. And where you can see our schedule of upcoming shows.
Yep.
If you missed our shows this past weekend, we've got several coming up. And where else can people find us?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Yep. Where we just interviewed Glenn Gretland, the head of 7A Records, which is they released the premium reissues of the Monkey solo albums, amongst a lot of other things. And so look for that.
Like the band, the Monkeys?
The band, the Monkeys.
Awesome.
I'm gonna follow the shit out of that.
Yep, that's it. Monkeyingaround.com.
Yep.
And I'm going to promote that on Sci-Fi Queens as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
I
We have a
think we
segment
have
with
our
podcast. So
Charles, I think we have our new promo for Earth Station Trek. I will follow the
All right,
I'll follow the fuck out of that.
Veronica, do you have a closing for us this week?
Glide, see?
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Joining us on Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be going live. We've got a lot of guests lined up over the next several weeks before April the 4th, where we'll be jumping into the premiere of Star Trek Discovery Season 5.
Yay.
Yes. Thanks all.
Bye.
Yes.